kind of forcibly put into this position where I feel obligated to talk about these important issues. Because, well, two reasons. A, I can, and B, I live here. And it would be easy for me to bury my head in the sand and just say, politics are done, it's screwed, Obama didn't follow through on what he said he was going to do. And you know, I got a lot of feedback from various people that say my subscribers when I make a video supporting Bernie or talking about politics or even trying to play the devil's advocate, so to speak, on healthcare and, you know, socialization. But I also understand capitalism. I understand the need for a free market. And it becomes very complicated, and a lot of people are very upset. They say, hey, I don't want Bernie Sanders in office. I don't want my money getting wasted. It's going to cost trillions of dollars. I've been just looking at all the different actual statistics, the numbers, you know, that they're saying our insurance is going to skyrocket, that people will be paying way more in taxes if Bernie's elected, when actually his plan is cheaper than the current plan. And, you know, I'm not going to debate or dispute whether or not Bernie is fit or whether he's bought out. Bernie is the most honest, straightforward. Let's put it this way, if Bernie Sanders was not running for president right now, I would just completely abandon this because I would assume that all hope is lost. You know, this is how I felt when Obama was running. After Bush, my wife and I hated Bush. I mean, he had repealed so many protection acts on our environment, you know, so they wanted to drill up in Alaska. You remember all these different things, or maybe you don't, but you know, I hear a lot of younger kids talking today about saying, well, Obama's the worst president we've ever had, and I just cringe. I say, man, you have no idea what you're talking about. So, you know, but I can't sit here and pretend like I can't deny that Obama was funded by Goldman Sachs. And in fact, both of the running, you know, the top runners last time were both sponsored by Goldman Sachs. It's a lose-lose situation. Now here we have Bernie Sanders coming in. He's sponsored by the people, for the people. And I've been a little wary-eyed at first, you know. Who is this old guy? Another old guy coming in here pretending like he's going to help us. After listening to him, after looking at his history, and seeing who contributes to his campaign, I am fully behind Bernie Sanders. I wasn't going to actually make it, like, be a Bernie supporter. I was just going to say I'll vote for him, but I actually am going to try to support him and push him forward as much as I can and explain to people, because I've heard so many people say, hey, I've given up, but then I saw what Bernie stood for, and I was blown away. He's a man for the people, and all you have to do is give him 5 minutes of your time, and you'll see. But this video here is kind of about Bernie, but also about Obama. I wanted to say that, you know, it's easy to dismiss Obama as causing all these problems with our country. I just don't understand it, though, because I have watched him talk. I've watched all his speeches. I've watched his demeanor. I've watched his action. I've heard that he's starting to talk more like an average Joe. In other words, he said that the other day. He says, I'm usually inclined to speak politically, but lately I've wanted to just, you know, just say what I feel, how I feel, because he's pissed off. He's sick of it. He's been blocked on every bill. So I wanted to read a couple of these bills so you guys can understand. If you're if you're super anti-Obama and you're saying that he's running our country into the ground, you should know that the GOP has blocked over 500 bills. Not 5 or 50, but 500 bills. So these are the bills, a few of the bills, that Republicans have blocked since Obama took office. Now, I understand that some of these bills may have cost money or had more involved in them, but just hear me out and see what you think. Okay, these are the ones, of course he did a lot of things without Republican support, but these are the ones he tried to pass. Okay, tax on companies that ship jobs overseas. A bill that would have eliminated a tax break that companies get when they ship jobs overseas. Republicans blocked this, allowing companies to keep the tax break they receive when they ship jobs to other countries. You don't realize that's just number one, but that's one of the biggest problems we have right now, is overseas accounting and keeping our money locked up in Cayman Islands and all these other places where companies can freely work without taxes and regulations. Number two, political ad disclosure bill. Would have required all donors to political campaigns to reveal themselves. Republicans blocked this not once but twice. Subpoena power for the GOP, or for the BP oil spill. This would give subpoena power to the independent committee responsible for investigating BP's role in the oil spill. Republicans attempted to block this. The Small Business Jobs Act would give local community banks access to billions of dollars to loan to small businesses. Republicans blocked this, then attempted to block it a second time and failed. The DREAM Act gives immigrant youth who were brought here as children a path to citizenship by earning a college degree or serving in the military for 2 years. Republicans blocked this. Now, I know a lot of people are really adamant about thinking that immigration is the biggest problem we have. And I know I've heard people say that they want to vote for Trump because he's going to kick out the immigrants. And I say, you really want to kick 11 million immigrants out of your country thinking that's going to solve the problem. Who's going to pick your fruit? Who's going to clean your motel rooms? People will say, they did an experiment where they had white kids go out and work in the fields and do some of these jobs the Mexicans do. It's hard fucking work. I'm sorry, pardon my language. And I'm not saying you can't do it because you're white. I'm saying the people in this country don't want to do it. The immigrants come in and do it. By booting them out, we would have to do it. We would fill in those jobs, but would we be getting paid more? Would the economy go up because of that? I don't think so, because you'd have to pay Americans more money because they're so snobby and demanding and they won't take lower wages. It's a very complicated issue. He wanted to repeal the don't ask, don't tell policy. We all know about that one in the military. I'll leave that one alone. Benefits for homeless veterans. It would have expanded benefits to homeless veterans with children. Republicans blocked this. That's just I'm not a fan of war, but I am strongly under the impression and the firm belief that if you serve your country, you should be taken care of by your country. Now, they've gone from shell shock to PTSD, and I think they even have a new name for it now, but it's all the same thing. It's going to war can really mess a person up, and we just treat our veterans like total shit, and it's really disturbing. My father was in Vietnam, and it fucked him up severely. Healthcare for 9/11 first responders who got sick from being at ground zero. It would provide billions in healthcare to help the first responders who were there and are now sick because of it. Republicans blocked this. The jobs bill. Wall Street reform. Put stricter regulations on the banks, preventing them from becoming too big to fail. I can just keep going down this list, but I don't really want to spend 20 minutes reading it. Fair Pay Act, or the Ledbetter Bill. It required that women will receive equal compensation to men for doing the same work. Republicans attempted to block this. Protection of child custody arrangements for parents who are members of the armed forces deployed in support of a contingency operation. Improvements to Department of Defense domestic violence programs. Enhancement to the Troops to Teachers program. Fiscal year 2011 increase in basic military pay blocked. Comprehensive policy on neurocognitive assessment of the military healthcare system. Authority to make excess non-lethal supplies available for domestic emergency assistance. So, this is a small list of 500 bills that Obama has attempted and has been blocked on. And the GOP said, we will block him on anything he tries to do. Now, of course, there have been some bills that have been signed that have been brought through, and he has been able to, but he's frustrated because he's blocked. And I'm going to tell you that the GOP wants to keep government small, because keeping government small keeps government out of the businesses. It keeps government out of people's private lives. Now, I want to address an issue here that's really important, because it always comes down to this in a discussion when I talk with people about these things. They say, but what about the free market? Don't you believe that capitalism will work itself out? Yes and no. It brings me back to the old saying. It was one of my favorite quotes. It was Winston Churchill, who said that democracy is the worst form of government, except all the others that have been tried. And what that means is it's the best we have, and we don't know what else to do. We have a majority vote for something, and it passes or doesn't pass. So even if 51% of people are ignorant, that's the way it goes. So the most important thing is to be educated as a society, as an individual, so you know what you're voting for, so you know what you stand for. But to realize that in the long run, these decisions aren't always the right ones. We make mistakes, and we are only human, so to speak. We're a country of people that want to see things change. And a lot of folks in this country don't want to see things change. And those are the folks who have the money. Because as long as the tax breaks are, open for those with billions of dollars, then there will always be loopholes, and there will always be those who are poor who are blaming the rich for the problems. And I want to make sure to address that, because that's not the problem. People who have money are not the problem. And no, I'm not saying that the rich should give up half their money to the poor and that it should all be dispersed equally. I mean, I've heard somebody propose that all the money in the world should be divided equally. And I said, who thought of this? A 5-year-old? First off, the money doesn't exist. Okay, the money is something that each country uses as a method of trade. It's based on gold at one time and silver, but really it was never based on anything. The reason we use gold is because it's mined at about the same rate society grows. But once the gold hoarding started and we went off the gold standard in this country, it became irrelevant. At this point, we just got to drop the dollar, but we can't. So a lot of people are upset by saying money's worthless, and that the only thing that gives it any value is what we give it. And that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And what that says to me is that the society is still willing to go along with using the dollar and using some of these resources and some of these establishments that we know are going to fail eventually. The economy will collapse probably. But setting all that aside, this is the fear-mongering that people use, is by saying they're going to destroy our society, they're going to collapse our country. Bernie Sanders is probably the last hope for any type of a future for the middle class. I'm not saying that his ideas are going to be able to be pulled through. I'm not saying that he is going to have full support of everyone, and I'm definitely not saying that he's not going to be blocked on everything just like Obama was. My point for bringing Obama into this was to make a comparison and an explanation to show that the people who are trying to make the changes for you, for me, for the people, are blocked and ridiculed, and then the folks with the money who can pay for the advertising campaigns to run people into the ground, make them look bad, and make people like you and me go against the very people who are trying to help us out. We become we create all these delusions, we call our leaders reptilians, or assume that they're some alien race, or that that they're all just psychopaths. But we have to remember that they're people too. They are people. They're people who have houses, who have families, who wake up in the morning, take a shower, and think about life. Maybe. But just to remember that they're not untouchable. It's not hopeless. The future is not hopeless for this country. And while the rest of the world laughs at the USA because of the stupid things that we do, or should say the stupid things we allow to happen, I'd really like the rest of the world to know that, for so long the US was able to close itself in its little bubble. Every country was. But when the internet became prevalent, all of a sudden you're talking to people from the US, the UK, Australia, Germany, and you realize that people have some very strong views on the country that you live in. And they just don't understand. They don't understand. Some people don't even get the size of the U.S. They're like, oh, you have a lot of different climates there, don't you? Like, Jesus, 3,000 miles across. It's a huge place. So some folks would like to see it go back to the smaller states. And somebody said, well, I'd like to see it go to states, to where the states take care of themselves and break up the federal government. And I've thought about that several times. And I said, but that would work until one state needed help for an earthquake or a flood or a tsunami, a disaster, whatever it might be. And the other states don't want to help, and there's no federal government to say, hey, we need assistance, Once the countries help each other, that's what we do. Each state is its own little country, And we kind of decide what we want to accept as far as how much we'll let federal law push into our state laws, and people are pretty damn outspoken. So, I guess I'm just going to leave this because this video turned out to be really long, and I'm sure people won't give a damn to watch a video about politics that's 15 minutes, but if you made it this far and you're still interested in, or you're still, I guess, curious about the point of this video, it's please look into Bernie Sanders. If you live in the U.S., please do your homework. Look at his reviews, look at his history, and look at who's funding him before you just assume he's bought off by the same other people. Because there is nothing that those in power would like more than for us to just ignore the man and have him go away. But he's not going away. And I've had discussions, about the election, or being more, I guess I'm not a liberal, but I'm more liberal than I am conservative. They've said, oh, what do you want, Hillary in office? A lot of people don't even realize that Bernie is an option. So things are picking up steam. I'm gonna stay involved in this whole election. I want to be aware of what I'm talking about, because I realize a lot of the things I thought in the past were, just based on what I was hearing, and just like so many other people. So when I make a political claim, I like to look into it as much as possible. But alas, I'm just human. So that's my take on Bernie and Obama. Don't think that I have some illusion that the world's perfect. That, it's a pretty creepy place sometimes. And no, I'm not blaming the people with money. And I already put my stance down on healthcare the other day, so I'm not going to go into that one. I understand how free market works, but when you're talking about patented medicine that can't be generically made, and administration is making this, all these little bits and pieces are being sucked out of our economy. So hopefully something good becomes of it.